This may come as a shock to some of you. I was addicted to marijuana, Mary Jane, for 8 years. And that's where it got me. I came to party. Sorry. All right. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. It is your girl, Chizi, and we are here for yet another episode. We are talking about something very, very, I think, serious. I think this is more of a serious conversation. And I want to just open up with you guys about some of the things that I have personally been dealing with in my life. I think a part of adulting is presenting one way and then having the things that you are dealing with behind closed doors, and only certain people know about it, and that's just what it is. But today we are opening up the curtains and I'm sharing. This may come as a shock to some of you. Today I want to share and talk about how I became addicted to marijuana. Okay? Mary Jane. Flower. What is it? Igbo and Shayo? Which one is it, Shayo or Igbo? You know what I'm trying to say, okay? I was addicted, yes, addicted to Mary Jane for 8 years. So I want to tell you guys my story. Before we get into it, I did see this video on the interwebs. There's this video circulating of Justin Bieber and SZA. They had a performance together, and Justin, poor Justin. Justin looked out of it, okay? He was damn near on the ground, all right? That man was folded. He looked really frozen. He was in the clouds, and he just looked like he visibly was struggling. And, SZA at a point had to just hold his chin, and it kind of brought him back to earth where he was able to finish out the performance and stuff. And I think at first when the video came out, people were kind of like, oh, SZA's like, everybody needs a Black woman to save the day. But I think it's a lot deeper than that. And I'm definitely praying for Justin, because I didn't really realize that he does a lot of drugs. I didn't know that. But from, what I'm hearing and what I saw, he was very, very, very impaired. And that looked like more than alcohol. That was not alcohol, baby. Drug addiction is real. Drug addiction is real. And a lot of times you don't realize how it can overtake you. I think this is a really big aspect of adulting, right? Growing up, that we don't like to talk about, but it's a real reality for a lot of us. And that is just picking up these seemingly innocent habits, right? That you just do as just a little vice to relax and get through the day, or wind down, or help you go to sleep and things like that. But you don't realize sometimes that these habits that you pick up can end up following you and grow into something bigger. And before you know it, it's just you can barely recognize yourself. I'm so grateful that I'm able to be on the other side of this and speak to this conversation, because I think so many of us are dealing with it, maybe even currently. Some of you may relate, some of you may not. I don't know if I can say the word, you know what I'm trying to say? So I'm just going to say Mary Jane. All right. So for me, right, I told you mama was a little bit of a Rolling Stone back in her day. Mary Jane wasn't the thing that I started with. It was actually alcohol. I remember when I drank for the first time, I drank by myself. Can you imagine? What was I going through? A lot. Actually, I was going through a lot. One day I'll tell you guys the story. But I started drinking when I was in high school. So I think I was around 14, 15. Yeah, I know. I don't look it. Do I? Exactly. Because addiction has no face. Clock it. Addiction has no face. All right. There is no look. This can touch anybody. Yeah, I started drinking when I was at 14, 15 in high school. And that was just my drug of choice then. But by the time I was a senior in high school, I remember, I think I threw a little get together at my house, well, my parents' house. Because one thing about me, I was throwing a little something in the basement. I sure was. And, one of my friends was like, they went to like the garage and they were smoking. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? And they were like, you want to try? And I was like, yeah. I tried to smoke for the first time and I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't think it worked. It didn't work, actually. I didn't really feel a difference. Then I remember it was the summer before I went off to college. There's a thing called hot boxing, right? So, it was a couple of us, maybe one, two, three, I think it was 5 of us total. And we were in the car and hot boxed the car. So, like, it's really potent. Okay. Baby, I got so high. I got so high, I cried. I cried. Like I don't even know why I cried. I think I was feeling feelings that I'd never felt before. Oh my goodness. I will never forget that day. I remember one of the girls that I was with, we weren't that like close in high school, but she was like super smart, like super, 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 super smart. And I remember her being there and she seemed like a professional. Like this is what she did all the time. And I remember being like, wow, that girl, like when I say she was a genius, like she was a genius. And she was smoking. And I'm like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. If she's doing it, she's on top of her work. So it can't be that bad. But I think this is what I mean about the fact that one, addiction has no face, right? And a lot of times people that are high functioning go unnoticed and struggle more because they are high functioning. Baby, at 16, why are you this much of a professional at smoking? I think I was blowing her high because I was doing the most, right? I'm crying. I'm just like, whoa. And she's like, just calm down. And I'm like, dang, girl. Sorry. This is crazy. I do want to also preface by saying that I've always had a very good girl persona, right? I'm somebody that I'm fairly wise, right? I'm pretty smart. So I've always been the type to just do what I need to do. You kind of slip through the cracks because of that, right? Like nobody's really checking for you because you're not acting out. Your grades are decent. Like, what's the issue? There could be no problem, right? And honestly, that had saved me over the years, I will say, because that's why I didn't do anything more than alcohol up until senior year because in high school, right? And even in middle school, we had a thing called the DARE program, and they taught us about things like weed and how weed is a gateway drug. And so you shouldn't start it because usually that's the thing that you start and it leads to you trying stronger substances, which they're right about. They sure are. They ate with that one. I knew not to do it, as most of us all do, but after a while, I was like, But anyway, so yeah, that was the day that I was introduced to this new drug. At first, I was like, I'm never going to do that again. That was too much. Like, oh, it was a lot. But then I was like, actually, that was kind of fun. That was kind of fun. And the food, when you had some food, it tasted incredible. I was like, you know what? That wasn't too bad. And that's where it got me, okay? I went off to college and, college is a free-for-all. And I remember the first like week you go as a freshman, there's like no classes. So it's just like it's just a free-for-all. And everybody's doing all the things, drinking, partying, smoking. So now, I realize, oh, like honestly, I think I was late to the party. Like everybody was smoking by the time I started smoking. So, I would smoke with other people, my friends and stuff. And yeah, it seemed cool. It was fine. It was fun. Like the laugh attacks were incredible. Like, oh, I fell in love. When I tell you I fell in love with Mary Jane, I fell in love. I sure did. What I didn't realize was I found a way to cope with the things that I was dealing with and battling with. But to me, it seemed fine. Like it seemed like a really nice way to release and have fun. And because everybody else was doing it, right? It didn't seem that deep. Everybody's drinking. Everybody's getting blacked out drunk. Everybody's smoking. Like, who cares? Right? But it's only as time goes on that you start to like notice, maybe not. But I'm going to take you through the process of what happened with me. Let's go to science real quick because we are scholars over here. All right. So according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, The definition of addiction is a chronic relapsing disorder characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite adverse consequences. So it's actually considered a brain disorder because it involves functional changes to brain circuits involved in reward, stress, and self control, aka dopamine. Okay, dopamine. All right. So, and these changes can last a long time even after a person has stopped taking drugs. It's really interesting because I battled with this over an 8 to 9 year period. And it was a very slow It was a very slow process. Many of you may or may not know, but I have been in therapy since 2018. Okay. I'm in a position where I do have a little bit more, will I say, information and knowledge about the things that I have particularly battled with. So I'm able to put language to it. I think if I wasn't in therapy, right? And I wasn't working with a psychologist and a psychiatrist at some point to help me understand some of the things that were going on in my mind, I wouldn't have said I was addicted to Mary Jane. I would have said, I just had this little habit. I just had this little habit, but baby, that is addiction. If you try to stop and you cannot seem to stop, right? Every time you put it down, eventually you pick it back up again. That's an addiction. It's a habit you have formed that you can't seem to break. That's addiction. So yeah, and honestly, you can be addicted to anything. You can be addicted to sugar. You can be addicted to your phone, social media. All right. We dealing with that right now. There's so many things you can be addicted to, and it has more to do with the mind than the actual drug or thing. Also, it can also deal with the drug, depending on the drug that you are indulging in, right? Or the activity that you're indulging in, it can actually like cause you to be addicted as well. So back to the story, right? So I'm in college, right? Freshman and sophomore year has come and gone. And I'll never forget what we always said was, oh, it's not addictive. You'll be fine. Just don't ever buy it on your own. Because once you buy it on your own, that's when you know you may have a problem. I'll never forget when I bought Mary Jane for the first time on my own. I said, I'm a big girl. I'm a big girl and I want to do what I want to do. I found a dealer. I don't know how I found the person. I probably just asked someone. I don't know. I asked somebody, right? Because there's always the campus dealer. And, bought it and I smoked by myself for the first time and I loved it. Now I had peace and quiet. I could hear my own thoughts. Watching TV was like a whole new experience. The food still amazing. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I got to relax in the comfort of my own space and dorm room and, not have to deal with any other personalities. And I was just, I was hooked. And I knew this was a marking moment in my life. I knew it, right? Because I remembered how everybody would say, just don't buy it on your own. Like, once you start buying it on your own, baby, it got you. So I knew this was a marking moment in my life. So by sophomore year, I started to smoke a little bit more regularly on my own. And what I would do was, I did my work. I would do my work and then I would chill and I would smoke. And I tried to space it out, right? Because one thing, the kids are going to talk, right? So I learned quite a bit. I learned that, you don't want to build up your tolerance too quickly. So try and space it out. So I would do that because also I had responsibilities, right? Not only was I a biology major, so I had a heavy course load. I was a part of different clubs. So I had a lot of responsibilities. So I tried to only do it on the weekends or, every couple of weeks or something. By junior year, me and Mary Jane were in a full-blown relationship. You don't understand. I anywhere that I could, I would smoke. I sure would. And again, it was normal, right? It was normal on a college campus. Drugs and alcohol was a very normal thing. So I could kind of blend in and get away with it and not feel bad about it or feel like there was really anything wrong. Now what started happening was it was starting to affect my school, like my schoolwork, right? Because I love this thing so much, because this is how it gets you, right? And this is the reason why people do drugs in the first place. It's usually to feel good because it feels fun. It's a way to relax. It's a way to like escape, right? So that's what it was for me. At first, it was just really fun. Like I really enjoyed it. And because it was so fun, I wanted to like do it all the time. So, and I saw other students, like I knew of other people that like would smoke all the time. So I'm like, okay, it can't be that bad, right? I should be able to do it. But I was definitely the type of person that like would smoke and then like eventually I'm falling asleep. Like I would get really tired. But you see, this was low-key insanity. And this is how you know it was the devil. Because why did I think if I'm getting tired all the time, why did I keep doing it? Anyway, child. So, yeah, I tried to get myself to be productive on it. Like it got to a point where I would try to study high because I heard of other students like would be like they could study while high. In fact, they would say that smoking helped them study. So I'm like, "Ooh, maybe smoking will help me study." Girl, the way I would fall asleep. Oh my God. And then I would try different strains like, maybe the indica would be better or the sativa. Yeah, that was not my case. I always ended up falling asleep. Like I would have like a good hour or two or even three where I'm like up and I felt like I was super creative. Like I felt like the thoughts were better and then I fall asleep. Midway of first semester of junior year, I started to experience the negative effects of Mary Jane because it always starts off good and then it gets bad. One, obviously, the tolerance starts building up, so you have to smoke more, right? Schoolwork is piling up. I'm sleeping a lot more, so I'm not being as productive. I had a lot of responsibilities by that point. I remember I was like in leadership in some clubs that I was a part of, but I was also like struggling with my mental health. I got really, really, really depressed my junior year. I remember that. Like I was down bad. And I was just like in my head a lot and I was sad. I was super, super sad. And I noticed that I was like a lot sadder than usual. Like I had dealt with depression over the years, but by junior year, I was like, girl, are you okay? I remember one of the days I was just like, do you think maybe it's the and I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But I had to look at the pattern, right? Every time I would smoke, I'd get, it would be euphoria for a little bit, but then I'd get super tired, lazy, going to sleep, right? I'm overeating, right? Because I have the munchies. I'm thinking so much in my brain. My grades were going down. I wasn't keeping up with my responsibilities. I remember I started getting headaches every time I smoked too. And then the craziest thing happened. My middle school friend passed away. And we found out that he passed away from a drug overdose. He found his way into heroin and I think like fentanyl, and he overdosed and he passed away. And if I'm not mistaken, he was actually smoking Mary Jane and it was like laced or he mixed it or something. And what kept ringing in my head was how Mary Jane is a gateway drug. And I remember, when we were in middle school and in high school, and I remember seeing the shift that started to happen with him because he started smoking pretty early, like maybe around middle school, beginning of high school. And I remember even seeing him with a cigarette one time and I said, whoa, and it just like, so when that happened, I remember being like, oh my gosh, Chizi, maybe you should like, maybe this is your sign to just like chill out on this thing. It doesn't seem to be helping you much. So chill out. So I was like, okay. And me and my friends actually from high school, we vowed, because we were still in touch at that time, we vowed like, all right, we're going to stop smoking. So all of second semester of junior year, I believe, I stopped smoking. And I noticed that like I was a lot more clear-headed, just kind of get back on track with school. This was the time where I picked up a communications minor and I was just trying to figure out stuff with career. So it helped a lot. I noticed even like I would dream again because I didn't realize that smoking so much, I guess it would put me in such a deep sleep that I wouldn't remember any of my dreams. So I started dreaming again and I just felt good. And I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, you don't need that. You don't need to do that. Um, and I think that's a tip that I want to share with some of you. Like, if there's a feeling that you get, there's these very particular, I don't know, moments in your life where you'll get this like very slight feeling where it makes you question or makes you go, right? And for me, it was I had to take a look at, the habit that I picked up with smoking. And I had to ask myself, this thing, is this really helping you? I really do believe that that is like, your instinct warning you. For me, I not only was it my instinct and my gut, right? But I also think it was God warning me, like, hey, watch out for this thing because you don't realize what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's what happens sometimes with drug addiction. Like that's how it starts. It starts off very innocent because nobody plans on being a drug addict. Like nobody. And, when I think about, Justin Bieber or Whitney Houston, right? Like so many great people started off with just this little habit. It didn't seem that bad, but it was just this little habit. Over time, it starts to snowball. And before you know it, it overtakes you. So I did recognize for me, right, when I was a junior in college and, my friend had passed from overdosing and I saw, the negative effects that were starting to happen as I kept smoking, I recognized, hey, Chizi, you should probably put this thing down. And that was a very pivotal moment. It was a very pivotal feeling that marked, oh Lord, oh man, I knew it. I knew it. And I think also the media also planted a lot of seeds. I would say took root a little later on in my life. So, shows like Degrassi, right? Watching music videos, even shout out to, I love me some Fenty Beauty, but like even Rihanna, right? Seeing these like influential figures with a blunt in their hand or a joint in their hand, like it looked cool. It looked so cool. So I'm like, okay, I mean, it can't be that bad. And they said it was the gateway drug. So just don't go past that and it won't be the gateway, right? Anyway, so senior year of college comes and, I have suite mates and I'm coming into my last year of college, like just excited, all the things. And by that point, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not smoking anymore. I'm not going to do that because I just recognized that it wasn't a habit that I should keep doing. Um, but then, because, this thing is very normal, one of my suite mates actually like was a very regular smoker and, she was one day, rolling up a joint and or a blunt. What does everybody say? We say blunt over here. Anyway, um, and one day she offered me some, and I remember going back and forth with myself, and I'm like, should you? Nah. But see, what happens is when a little bit of time passes, when you're like trying to quit a habit, it doesn't seem that bad anymore because it's like, well, I mean, I've gone a couple of months without it, so it's not like I'm addicted or anything. Like I can clearly go some time without it, so I can quit at any point. Yeah, that's how it starts. That's the lie that you tell yourself. And so that's what I started thinking like, well, I mean, I've gone a couple of months without it, I'm fine, and if anything, I'll just do it this one time and be fine. So, I ended up smoking, and that's how that habit picked up again. Oh my God. Oh my gosh, I remember so vividly. Like, I smoked with her that once, and then, I just kept it as I'm not going to buy for myself. I'm not buying. But then, she'd smoke again. I'd be like, let me get a little hit, Like, let me get a little hit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'll be fine. Just a little bit. Just a little micro dose. Um, and before I knew it, I found myself buying again, found a dealer, and now I'm smoking by myself again and all the things. And literally the same thing happens, right? At first it's euphoric, it's amazing. I love it. Ah, so good. And then after a while, I notice I start getting like my mood is a lot more down, right? I'm getting a little bit more depressed. I'm in my head a lot. Um I'm not as productive. So, yeah, by the time, I graduated from college, child, it was a done deal from there because one, I'm back home. Now I'm dealing with postgraduate depression, all right? The postgrad blues. You're confused about life. You don't know what to do with yourself after college. I felt lost. Oh my God, that was a terrible time. I remember actually making a video about it on YouTube. I don't know if it's still up. So yeah, of course, naturally, to cope with all of these feelings that I'm experiencing, I I'm drinking a lot. I'm smoking a lot. And mind you, I'm in my Nigerian parents' house. I don't know how I got away with it. I don't. I really don't. I think low key they knew, but like they just didn't. Maybe they didn't believe it. I don't know. But I tried to like, go outside and things like that. But there's no way they didn't know. They had to have. I don't know. I'll ask them. Maybe I'll bring them on one day. So from 2017 up until the beginning of 2022, I battled essentially with an addiction, pretty much, right? Um, it it was a habit that I had formed by this point, and it was pretty solidified. And I remember actually in 2018, I started going to therapy because I recognized that I was not okay. I knew I wasn't okay. I knew it wasn't okay. And unfortunately, what happens with a lot of young adults, teenagers, adults, is, your parents are working a lot. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And you fly under the radar. And I'm just grateful and I'm thankful for the wisdom that God has given me, where he just like, I don't know, he just prompted me to go get help for myself. I just was like, listen, 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 I gotta talk to somebody. So that's actually why I started therapy back in 2018, for a number of reasons as well. But that was the main thing that I was like, yeah, if I keep going this way, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And yeah, so I started going to therapy, and I wish I could say that therapy like fixed and cured everything, but it did not. Right? It just made me aware of what I was dealing with and what was also the underlying thing that I may have been running away from. So for me, what I've learned is that even like the depression, it really isn't that. It was actually anxiety, which is like, I don't know. I never like thought that I dealt with anxiety. I really didn't. Like depression I could name. Like, yeah, I'm sad. But it's like, why are you sad? Like, what are you sad about, right? And it's like underneath that was anxiety. There was just a fear. There was like a compulsiveness to fill the void of something, right? And that's how a lot of habits form as you're trying to ease anxiety. What I noticed was I really started to feel like a zombie. Whew. I remember how much, like, it started to become so hard to just do daily things. Filming, creating content, being creative. I can imagine that some of you that watched me over the years, you may or may not have been able to even notice, right? Because I had to develop just this way of turning on for the camera because that was my job at that point. But so I would be giddy and stuff for the camera. And I mean, I would be like that sometimes in real life too. Yeah. But I have to be that way for the camera. But once I'm off camera, I was subdued. Okay. I was smoking my little thing and just chilling. And I remember just feeling very zombie like, especially if like I would like chain smoke for days at a time. Um, and then obviously this contributed to the weight gain because I'm eating a lot more, right? And I remember just feeling like I was just not operating at the capacity that I knew that I could operate on, right? Um, there was a very stark difference between my productivity level by 2020, right? When I was deep into this addiction versus like me in high school when I was sober. And I remember being like, whoa, are my brain cells being fried? They were. And they say that. They literally say that smoking all the time like will fry your brain cells. So yeah, I noticed that too because I remember that my memory recall started to get really bad too. Like I would try to I would be talking like in the way that I'm talking right now, and it would be hard to recall certain words. And I'm like, girl, what's going on? Like you that used to read. I used to read a lot. Like I know vocabulary. And it's like oh man, it was tough. It really sucked. It really sucked. And I think with any habit that you develop, there gets a point where you start to see that there's more cons than pros. Um, yeah. And by 2020, 2021, I really started to see that this thing was no longer good. Oh man, I could see that it was no longer good. And oh my God, I'm gonna do a quick story time. So I remember 2021. This was when I knew, Chizi, this thing is starting to overtake you. Like I was dating this guy, right? And I was like 25, 26. And he's talking like marriage and stuff. And this is the first guy that like really was talking marriage to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is serious. And I remember thinking, whoa, am I still going to be smoking Mary Jane as a wife and a mother? I never envisioned that for myself, and I don't think anybody does. I didn't think it would follow me this far into my life. And, that just wasn't the plan for me. But I feel like that's how habits sneak up on you. So I say this so that some of you that are listening, whether you've already indulged in things or you've thought about it or haven't, or maybe you have another vice of your own choice, but you really do want to think long and hard about the things that you indulge in, right? And it would be best if you do this before you try it in the first place, but I'm lucky that I didn't even fall into harder drugs. And that's not to say I didn't try it, because I did. Can you imagine? Like I knew that Mary Jane was the gateway drug. So don't do other drugs so that you don't go into the gateway of other things. But thankfully, right, I didn't get hooked on anything else. Honestly, I really feel like that was the grace of God because I don't know, but I think that's what happens. That's what happens when you're just searching for stuff, right? You're searching to just feel something, to fill the void. And I remember, man, I remember when I noticed that it was hard for me to sit by myself sober. That's when I knew. I said, Chizi, you've finished yourself. You've done it. Because when did it become hard to just be sober? But I just want to say, if there's any of you that have listened in, watched, and you relate to my story at all, one, I want to say that I see you, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be that you were, smoking this particular drug or even doing drugs at all, but we all have things that we are struggling with, we are secretly battling with. And I want to say that I see you. And not only do I see you, God sees you. Sometimes we feel like nobody in the world knows what we're going through, right? And I just want you to know that you are actually not alone. I'm going to have resources down below if you are struggling with addiction, any type of mental health issue. I'm going to leave some resources down below so that you can get help, because I think it really is important to take your life into your own hands, right? You need to fight for your joy, fight for your wellness. And I hope this encourages you not to quit. There is more on the other side, and we need you. Okay. We need you here. So please, 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 please get the help that you need and try Jesus. Please try Jesus. You don't got to believe in him. Just try him anyway. Try him anyway. That is actually my story. And as y'all can see, I seem very level-headed now. And that is because I have been sober for 3 years, almost 3.5 years now. I would love to tell you guys about how I ended up quitting, because that was a whole miracle. But you're going to have to tune into the next episode to find that out, okay? Yes. So make sure you guys stay tuned and come back next week. I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye, y'all.